Hello and welcome to the June 2025 edition of Easy Talks. This is real life right now. We are in person, together, no split Zoom screens. We are here. So it's so exciting. And the other reason why this is so exciting is because June marks the beginning of our third year doing Easy Talks. Yay! And you know how you feel about threes.
Threes are significant.
Yes. So we're here.
And kudos to us. 3 years of consistency. 3 years of consistently showing up, and 3 years of just being authentically engaged in the process of healing, evolving, and releasing, and like showing up despite what life is giving us.
Right. Yeah. So like if we had it like technically it'd be like season 3, episode 1 today, right here, right now. Yeah. So as soon as my sis started the recording, I was like, OMG, I look pregnant AF. Like, I'm just sitting here and I'm like, what? There's nothing I can do.
This is the debut of the belly.
It is.
Now you have not shown belly.
Nope. Wow, month 8, and this is the first time that it's not just like chest up or something. Even though I will admit, because I'm not trying, but I am, and we get to be real, raw, and authentic. But my breasts, y'all, I'm like, I just see them jokers popping too. They just like,
they busting out the top of her shirt.
They busting out the top. Just like a little bit of juice, but not a whole lot because I am trying to be mindful. I do got a hubby at home, and this is his baby in my belly. But I'm like, yeah. So that has been shown just a little bit. I'm like, wow, they up there. They like just boop, boop, and then pow, belly. But anyway,
that's one of the benefits of being pregnant, though. The boobs are like nice when you're pregnant.
See, and I'm part of the itty bitty committee.
Me too.
So no, sis, like I'm like official, like certified.
Not right now.
No, not right now. Right now, these jokers are juicy AF. But most of the time, so I was like, yeah, that is definitely a perk of expecting.
Yeah.
Is that they just like bye bye boom. So yeah. So I guess we were talking before we push record, like, what are we gonna talk about this month? And I think as we talk about pregnancy, we can kind of roll into the conversation that we had earlier as we were just having our girl time and our QT, just talking about navigating parenting. So one of the beautiful things about my SS and I is there's so many similarities that we have. So my SS is a mother of 2 amazing young adults. I want to call them little people, but they in their 20s, so they grown AF. Yeah. And I, right before I came here, had lunch with my stepmom. So not only do you have your 2 babies, but then you also have, a bonus stepdaughter that you have. And so I have my stepmom and I have my little brother and my little sister, who are in their early 20s. Shout out to Reagan and Nick. But just that dynamic of my SS is a stepmom who had an opportunity to share space with a child that was not hers, and what that looked like in life. And I had an opportunity to grow up with a stepmom, and I was not, hers from her womb. But just how we now share space with your experience being a stepmom and my experience being a stepdaughter, and then you having your 2 children and me having your 2 adult children, and me being in the process of raising 4, soon to be 5 little people. So I would love for you, sis, just to kind of share, and I know in the book, I don't want to share what you said, but there's a part that you wrote about in the book. There's a term that you use around motherhood then versus where you are now. And I would love for you to just share some of what that looks like, navigating adult children while healing, evolving, and releasing?
So the term that my sis is referring to is the dark mother. And so when I use that term, and I know there's different people that use it for different things, but the term that I use the dark mother for is that version of me where I wasn't my best self. That version of me where those untapped into, acknowledged even, deeply suppressed childhood wounds were actually actively showing up in my day to day and how I showed up as a person. How I showed up as a person, how I showed up as a mother, how I showed up as a daughter, how I showed up as a wife, how I showed up as a friend. But specifically in this situation, the dark mother. So the dark mother was riddled with insecurities, was riddled with control, was riddled with low vibrational energy, a lack mindset, scared and fearful of what some of my things were that negatively impacted me. Um, and in essence, blocking my children from being their best versions because I was pouring all of my stuff into them as I was raising them, as opposed to from a healed perspective and a mother being in the light, right? Because I feel like the dark and the light is always at play. And daily, I choose, moment to moment, I choose to show up as light and love. Understanding having adult children, I'm able to see the negative impacts of the dark mother in them as they navigate life. Um, I'm grateful that my oldest, which is my daughter, my son is my youngest. Um, Unfortunately, we hit a bump in the road shortly after she graduated high school, where I was just getting on the cusp of starting this wellness work. And we had a instance where I was physical with her, and she was 18. Um, but that physicality came from me not being able to articulate something that I wasn't comfortable with her doing. But instead of me being able to say, hey, let's not do it, this is the reason why, I pushed her. And I'm like, just frustrated, just pushed her. And my children weren't raised with physical correction, maybe a pat on the hand, even though the mental stuff is worse though, right? Because me being controlling and withdrawing feelings and emotions because I was upset by something they didn't like. I mean, one could argue and actually that could be more detrimental than the physicality of it. But still, based on my children's DNA, the way my daughter is made up, physical is it's extreme for her, and that pushed her away. So it impacted our relationship. So as I began to do the work, deeply, deeply, deeply do the work to uncover, to navigate, and really acknowledge things that I hadn't acknowledged, um, it allowed me to have real conversations with her, to hear how she felt. Because for me, it was like growing up, children were seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. So the opinions that I may have had, I wouldn't have been able to share with my mom. And I had that same space for my children, even though some may feel like they had too much autonomy and opportunity for whatever and vocals, what have you. But in the grand scheme of things, I was controlling every aspect of their life so tough that they didn't have an opportunity really to breathe. Mm. And so as I look at one of the books that I read, I want to say it's probably Getting to Love You One, because I've been in this book for a long time. It talks about having two kinds of parents, an intrusive parent or a parent that wasn't nurturing. And I was that intrusive parent. And what that intrusive parent yields is a child that doesn't really want to be around as they get older because they have their independence. And so that's what I'm experiencing. So that dark mother put me in a space where that's what I experienced for a long time. And my daughter rarely comes home. But what we have been intentional about, as I have been able to show up healed and evolving and continuing to release what does not serve me, is that we're intentional about making times to be together, in spaces that are hers, so that she feels like she has, I don't want to use the word control, but she's under my control, because home for her, even though from my mind, it's like, well, home is what the heart is and home is where you can always come back to. Having a dark mother in a controlling home, why would they want to come back here? Right. Because even though I'm healed, even though I've evolved, even though I've released and I've acknowledged, I understand the things that I've done, the reality is she hasn't had the time to do those things yet. And because of the detrimental things that they have been said, the way, because I used to give them the silent treatment when I was upset. That's awful. But as a mother, dealing with my own stuff at that time in the dark mother space, I didn't see it as that. So that's how it shows up now. For my son, it's a little bit different because mother-son relationships are different. With regard to me teaching, like I don't teach him how to be a man. I can show him how to love based off of how I want to be loved. And, you know, my husband and I can demonstrate that to him. But for lack of a better word, the technicalities of being a man, that doesn't necessarily come from a mother to a son. As a stepmom, I raised my stepdaughter from 2 weeks after we got married, so she was 9, until 18, right before she left for college. And our relationship now it really doesn't exist. However, I don't see that as a negative because I also see it as an opportunity for her to have the relationship that she desired with her actual mom, because her mom was alive when we raised her. So for me, it's really about, for one, honoring myself, because I'm just not ready to be back in that space because of a lot of things. But then I'm also from a space of maturity and like allowing a mother to show up. Her mother is showing up with her full throttle. Her mother is showing up and being a grandmother to her grandchildren. And for me to come in as stepmom, that may, I'm not saying that it will, but for me, it's me honoring her role as my stepdaughter's mother and as her grandchildren's grandmother. So for me, it's really about first honoring myself, and secondly, honoring the space that every mother desires to have, which is a relationship with their daughter that can be their relationship with nobody else intervening in it. So a lot of it is me staying away because that's what I feel called to do, to be honest. And I'm focused right now on healing the connectivity with my children. Trusting that will ripple into all of the relationships that I have. So that's the difference. Yeah.
I love that so much. I feel like I just be listening like, like, I mean, it really is. And it's interesting too, because another thing that we talked about during our girl time was my SS's conscious sun energy, which is the 27 gate in human design and gene keys. And it's all about that nurturing, that caring, that giving energy. And I feel like, you know, even in our relationship, I feel nourished. I feel nurtured. I feel held. I feel seen. I feel sold into when we share space. Mm-hmm. So listening to you talk, it really is just like, you know what I mean? Just holistically. And I think it's just so interesting because, you know, when I think about my relationship with my stepmom, we are in the best place that we've ever been. And growing up, it was very rocky for both of us. And I think that one of the biggest gifts is being able to share space with you and hear your perspective as a stepmom in a similar situation where she married my dad when I was 6 and I was with them until I was 16. And how, like, you get married and you have this idea of what your marriage is going to be like. And then, no disrespect, all due respect, but here's this other child who is like, you're navigating how do you incorporate this other person into what you're building with your new spouse. And then for me, I can't speak for your stepdaughter, but for me, I wasn't easy. I had a lot of trauma. I felt very misunderstood. And her and where she was at and me and where I was at, it often clashed. And so it made it harder for and on both of us. And so neither one of us having the right answers or knowing the right way as to how to share space again, I, as a young person, just kind of internalized it as, oh, she'll be, she, the wicked witch of the whatever, that Cinderella Disney stepmom. That is what she became. Um, and so getting older and sharing space with her as an adult, and being able to, through my work, witness her and see her not as my stepmom, not as a set of expectations, but as a real life human being with a heartbeat, and to witness her willingness to show up, has been everything that I've needed for us to kind of mend what was and intentionally create what now is between us. But again, our relationship has allowed me to just see her from a totally different perspective lens, and from a human of what that looks like to navigate this person who is having a hard time. And because as a child, you just do what you do and you don't realize the impact that your behavior has on your parents, whether it's a step parent or a biological parent. But with you, I do get to see that. So I'm grateful because I feel like you have been part of her and I's healing journey, even indirectly, but because of what we share. And when I think about my babies, when I was younger, I always said I want 5 kids. I wanted it to be an odd number. I wanted it to be weird. I wanted all of that. And I wanted kids so bad. But what I have realized in my healing journey and in my unraveling and in my unbecoming while I am becoming is that was a trauma response to want children. And for me, it was like, I just want to do for my kids what was never done for me. I just want to have somebody that'll love me, somebody that, whatever. And so that's why I want kids, so that way I can give them what I never had. And, it's going to be just perfect because I'm going to be this incredible mom, and I'm not going to do what my mom did to me, and I'm not going to do what my dad did to me, and I'm not going to do all these things. I'm only going to get married once, and me and my husband are going to be together forever. But I had nothing beyond that. I didn't know what it meant to be a mom. I didn't know what it meant to be a wife. I didn't know what it meant to be in marriage. I had nothing for what do I want from a husband beyond the title of having a husband. What do I want? What do I think motherhood is outside of unconditionally loving your kids? And if you love them unconditionally, and, if you figure out the right way, then their childhoods will be perfect and there'll never be no issues, nothing. I walked in blindly, and I walked in naively, and I walked in my full throttle trauma self, my unhealed, my wounded child. That's where all of these ideas and dreams and desires came from. So having my first kid be a kid that's not written in any textbook, they don't, even from nursing, I didn't know what engorgement was. I didn't know my breast was going to like not be nice and fluffy and juicy, but like rock hard cantaloupes. And I can't get him to latch, and he has colic and acid reflux, and there's all this stuff going on, and it's just like, what in the actual F? And then to have all these other, again, not typical textbook type of what to expect, what and when expect. He wasn't in none of them books. None of it was in alignment. So I'm like, what the F? And then all my unresolved mess, like what you were saying, you didn't use those words, but for me, my unresolved mess, my unresolved trauma, my hurt, my pain, my numbness, my dissociation, my coping mechanisms that did not work for sharing space with a child, all came full throttle. And I'm like, what the F do I do? How? Whoa. So, just doing the best I can, but definitely parenting in my early stages, just from a what in the actual F zone, like just doing the best I can and then trying to work and then trying to get my life together and, then being in this relationship that like twin flame, very unhealthy, toxic, trauma bond. But like a love that was undeniable, yet in every sense of the word unhealthy. So all of those pieces and components, and we're raising a kid in it. And then we're like, oh, I stopped nursing and I get pregnant. And I was like, oh, maybe nursing really is a form of birth control, because as soon as I stopped, I got pregnant. And so bringing another child just into this whirlwind, and then just, and then getting a divorce, and then everything that happened with my first daughter's fight, like so many things. And now it's like becoming not becoming but going on a journey of healing while parenting. And so for me, it's this ebb and flow, because I do have all this wisdom and I have done all this research, and I do know so much about myself and about the ways of life that are possible, yet being again on that journey of what does that mean to integrate that wisdom, what does it mean to embody that wisdom, and what does it mean to be in the ebb and flow of parenting. And so I feel like with this baby, this is an opportunity for me to again show up in a way that I never have, because with each child they get an evolved version of me. And I am so far from perfect, while also honestly saying that I do my best. And I think that that's the most beautiful place to be in now as a mom of 4, soon to be 5, versus where I started. Is I'm so aware of my imperfections. I'm so aware that I'm on the journey, and I have a real deep desire to not just be a mom and show unconditional love, but to be a real mom. To be a mom that says, you know what, I'm sorry I effed up. To be a mom that says, you know what, I'm overwhelmed and I can't talk to you right now, because if I do talk to you, I'm going to say something out of pocket. I'm going to show up in a way that I don't. I need to back up away from you, because right now what I want to do is knock the mess out of you, and I don't want to put my hands on you. So I just got to back up, and I can't be around you right now. It has nothing to do with you, and it has everything to do with me. I get to say this to my kids. Maybe it's not the perfect thing to say, but for me, it's being all the way 100, because back in the day, some years ago, I would have just knocked the mess out of them, or I would have just been in reactive mode, or I would have said something from a place of reactivity, emotional dysregulation, whatever. And so now I'm like, I'm not okay. And so I just need to back away, or this, I'm overwhelmed right now. This has nothing to do with you and everything to do with me. But I feel like that's invaluable to give my babies, to be able to speak to them and to say, I might not be showing up perfectly, but I'm taking accountability for where I'm at and letting you know this ain't you, this is me. And I think that that's a gift.
I know what happened to the light.
I don't either.
So we're going to just keep on rolling.
Yes.
Should I turn it on? Keep talking.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's the biggest piece right now. It's just being in that as I prepare for my finale, and knowing too, like, wow, what a gift, like, to be able to show up in this way with him and for him and for my other babies.
I was reading somewhere and they were talking about how when you have multiple children, people, sometimes kids complain like, well, mom wasn't like that or dad wasn't like that with me. No kid ever gets the same parent. And the reality is, when you're intentional about being your best version, every day they're gonna get a different version. Every week they're gonna get a different version, with the intent of that version always being the best. And I think, to speak to what you said about the conversation of just being able to say to your kids, like, right now it's not good. I need to process. Um, it's not you, it's me. And depending on the ages, sharing with them why it's not them and you. Because depending on the kid, it could be a sensitive child where it's like, well, if it's not me and it's you, then what is it about you that, well, and being able to articulate it at an age appropriate, in an age appropriate way. Because what I know to be true is that even for myself, it took me to get older to understand that my mother was not just a mother, she was a woman. She was a whole woman who had a whole life before she had me. And as she had me, she still had her own life, her own dreams, her own desires, her own traumas, whether known, acknowledged, wanted to acknowledge. She had a story that had nothing to do with me, even though I was part of her story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as children, that's important for us to recognize. Because I used to have this expectation. She would always say, well, you think I should be perfect. And I had a phase in my life where I did have my mom on a pedestal. But I also know that that's part of, I don't know if I would call it a shadow part, but for me, it's like a thing of respect, right? That you had her on a pedestal. People that I admire, putting them on a pedestal, but that's actually stress for them. Don't put them on a pedestal. That's one of my greatest learnings. People are people having human experiences every day, trying to just survive until they make a decision like I did. Not that like I did, like because I did it, but it was the point that I said, I'm not just out here surviving. I am out here. I'm going to thrive because I'm going to put myself first. And as long as I put myself first and I do my best, that's all I have to worry about. And I share space with people that I know are just doing their best. And I know that not by them having to say, well, I'm doing my best, and just so you can share space with me. It's through actions, it's through words, it's through respecting the boundaries of, or not being upset if I haven't called or I didn't respond to a text. Because there's no disrespect, all due respect, as you say. It's really about timing and me managing all of the noise and everything around me to be able to show up the way that I show up, wholly, fully, authentically. And then to hold that same type of boundary and respect for my mother as a woman, having a human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as I've gotten older, I know as I've gotten older and I've done my work, and me trying to help my children to see, like, yeah, I'm your mom, but like I'm a whole woman too.
Mm-hmm.
I think about the bumpiness that my husband and I've experienced in our marriage, and I think about some of the downside of the kids, like understanding that it was bumpy, but the downside and the good side of them seeing the move, the working ethic sewing into, so that that's a part of life and love that they can see too through our example. But it's not easy because it's applying those four agreements, and taking myself out of the role as mother and putting myself into the role as woman and wife, because I'm a woman first.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot. All of it is a lot.
And seeing too, like how they, like, it'd be certain things, like I've said before, it's like I got 4 mirrors around me at all times whenever I share space with my kids. And, it'd be great if they were all reflecting the same reflection.
Mm-hmm.
But this one shows me this one shows me this one shows me that, and this one showed me something totally different. And I'm like, whoa, just to see me in these different ways, because they take in what they see.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, oh, like she acting like that because she get it from her mama, and he did that because he saw me do that. And so I'm like, for me, like before, like it used to be overwhelming, like, oh, F, like I always got this humongous load that I'm carrying of all the stuff that I gotta work, not got to, but feel like, man, like in order for me to be my best self, I gotta go through this whole big old mess of all the different things and working on this and working on that and working on this. And holy cow, like I'm always working on something. But now today, like I see it as an opportunity to be like, ooh, this is an area I get to soften in. Ooh, they're showing me something about me that maybe doesn't need to be fixed, but it's just a piece of me. Ooh, when I reach this place, this is my go-to. And now I'm grateful that I got to see it from you, because now it's something that I can sit with, witness, mirror, be with. And so that's another component. It's like my babies for me are four of my biggest teachers. They inspire me to do better and be better. They encourage me, especially all four of them in their own ways. But really, like my princess, she's always been my biggest fan. And I'm like, girl, listen. She's like, I want to be just like you when I grow up. And I'm like, no, no, I don't want you to be just like me. I want you to be your best self. And she's like, no, no, no. I want to be just like you. I want to be, and just her encouragement and her like true unconditional love, no matter what we go through, no matter how, when I am in my dark mother, when I am in my shadow, when I am wholly imperfect, she sees me at my core and believes in me, and just the motivation. And I'm just like, what, like how, I don't even got to figure it out. I just get to sit here and have a moment of gratitude that she is a reminder, like, to give myself grace. And I think part of it, what they've shown me too, is they know that I'm imperfect and they love me anyways.
But that's a beautiful demonstration that you taught your children, though, which means you've taught them that you love them with grace. It's an unconditional love. And when you talk about, your children being that mirror, every relationship in my mind at this point in my journey is a mirror.
Hello.
It really is.
Yeah.
It was a couple weeks ago, I was talking to my husband and I was becoming frustrated with something. And then I had to pause and I said, thank you for being my mirror. And his response was, well, that's sarcastic. And I said, no, it's not, because I don't dabble in sarcasm. For one, part of doing my best is not doing that. But when I say thank you for being a mirror, is you showed me an area that I need to work on for myself. Because why am I relying on you to make me feel a certain way when I need to know how to self-soothe? When I need to know what is happening with me. It's a 3-pause check-in.
Yeah.
Like, why am I feeling what I'm feeling? Why am I expecting another person to make me feel a certain way when I have all the tools necessary to soothe myself? Not saying that a relationship is not what I desire, but it's saying that's codependency. And why in that moment was I being codependent? What did I really need to work on? What was I really needing to lean into? And which showed me that I needed some time for myself to really reflect and lean into why. Understanding the different dynamics that were going on. And at that moment, I was just being emotional, which is okay. I have an emotional authority, but not being stuck in that feeling and not making somebody else responsible for making me feel better, because it's my responsibility to make me feel better.
Talk about it.
So, and then, you talk about your kids and how they inspire you. And it's like, as I was doing the work and I think about the blog, blogging for over 7 years now and starting TRC and consistently doing, having engagements and living my truth. When I started, I used to be like, okay, son, and he used to say, Mom, don't talk about it, just be about it. Just be about it. And he will always say that to me. And what I realized in him saying that to me, part of my shadow part is when I feel like I need to tell somebody and share to get their support and to get their encouragement, that's an insecurity in me. And that really is that fear because I'm doing something different, and that doing something different is actually growth. So it's just like, it's powerful, the whole journey. But children are a beautiful thing. I just challenge all parents to engage with children with light and love and really take time to do the work to see what unconscious things are negatively impacting you as a parent. Because when you're busy, like I was busy for years doing all of the things, talk about it in book 3, I didn't make time to lean in and listen to my children. But I was mentoring other people's children. I had a whole teen group that I was responsible for. But in my own home, I was controlling every aspect, which was rippling negativity and doubt and insecurity to my children, and I didn't even realize it. So that's part of the beauty of now how I lean heavily into my line 2 energy, which is hermit energy, which is a little bit of solitude when I'm feeling called. And when I feel like I have to be doing, it's also a time for me to pause. Because that doing is also a shadow part. And it's not allowing me to sit and be still and commune, because that's what I'm needing to do when there's a lot of outside noise that's unconsciously coming up. Oh, we'll go do this and go do that. Oh, because you can do this. Oh, you can do that and that and that and that. You'll be able to do it. It won't. When in reality, if I'm not intentional about what I'm focusing on and it's in alignment with where I'm trying to move forward and where organically move forward, then I'm out of alignment and I'm out of design. So, and it's interesting because it's like now I have an opportunity with my adult children to fully show up that way and still make space for them, because no matter the age, they will always be my children. And even for myself at 51, my mother is I'm still her daughter. She still holds space for me. The only difference now is the way she holds space for me is like no other thing I could have ever imagined, because I've healed to a space where I'm able to receive it and hear it and receive it and not have attitude about things and be sensitive about words. We're able to have conversations about everything up under the sun, because I know it's impeccable, because I know she's doing her best. She's not making assumptions. She's not taking things personally. She's definitely being impeccable with her word. And I am too. So it makes that mother-daughter relationship so much better and just at peace and in alignment. And at the end of the day, and what it boils down to, like we talked about earlier, she's a whole woman having a whole life experience who also needs to be held, who also needs to be loved, who also needs to be supported, not just by her husband, but by her daughter, by her grandchildren. So it's a lot of beautiful work that comes with all of this. So
it is. And I've talked a lot about my stepmom, and I'm so grateful for her. I'm grateful for where our relationship is. But I would be remiss if I did not take a moment to shout out my mom, because I get to have that relationship with both my stepmom. That is, we have come so far and we have a relationship like we've never had. But then I also have my mom, and my mom is my person. My mom is that person I talk to every day. I'm not even going to go there. But what I will say is right here, right now, she is here. She loves me. She supports me. She encourages me. She uplifts me. She holds me. She sees me. And like, she has a love for me that I have never, ever in my whole life ever experienced. And it is so rich and it is so deep and it is so real. And she and I have done hella work to get to where we are. And she is my everything. um and that what I have with her is what I aspire to one day have with all my children. But I would not be who I am, where I am, without my mama. And I mean, she is just she is an incredible, incredible person. And like you said, as I have fallen back and witnessed her and saw her and taken time to understand her and why she moved the way she did when I was a kid and why she showed up as an unconventional mom.
Mhm.
I understand it. I have grace, I have love, and I see her, and I'm able to not take the way she showed up personal. But it just makes me love her more because she did what she had to do to take care of her, even though it was in a way that just you don't often see,
Mhm.
with not being a primary caretaker. Until I left my stepmom and my dad, and she was like, okay, well, I got her then.
Mhm.
Without question, without doubt, she had me when that space was no longer available to me. But as we talk about kids, I do got to go get my babies from camp. My girls are there. So, sis, what is the prompt that you are going to leave everyone with?
Mm. This fine month of June, we will leave you all with make time. And this is specifically to parents, moms, of course, because we're moms, but dads too. Lean into, make space to write out what you can do for yourself that is going to positively ripple the relationships you have with your children.
Mm.
How can you show up for you so that you positively impact your children, excuse me? How can you show up for you so that you positively impact your parents? Why do I keep saying parents? It's a reason for that. I'm not quite sure what that is. So I'm going to say for your children and for your parents.
Ooh.
So
Both and.
how can you show up for yourself that's going to positively impact the relationship for your children and for your parents? With grace, humility, and unconditional love. Ba-doop boop. That's it. That's all.
All right. Until next month, y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye. It recorded.